Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Springs in the Desert podcast. I'm Jillian, your host, and I am joined today by teammate Cassie. How are you, Cassie?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jillian?
I'm good. The weather is warmer. It's still very, very windy here in North Dakota, but if the weather is warmer, and I'm here for that. I appreciate the warm weather, and yeah, just time to chat with you today about a fun topic. I think Cassie, Ian, and Anne were just doing something really cool and really beautiful that we want to talk about today to I don't know. I think just encourage us in our own homes, in our own spaces and dioceses, that we can make a retreat if that's what we're being called to do. Right? We talk a lot about fruitfulness here, and that's kind of the theme of this month. But sometimes, right, we need to take a step back and be nourish ourselves before we can go
Mhm.
forth and give more in our marriages and to those around us. So, Cassie, would you just tell us a little bit about where you were and what you were doing this last weekend?
Absolutely. Yes, we were in the Diocese of Phoenix. The Office of Natural Family Planning is the one who invited us to come out. And we were so grateful for all their support and all they did to put on this retreat for the couples in their diocese who are going through infertility. We had about 12 couples, and it was just such a wonderful blessing to be able to be a part of that. If any of them are listening, I'm so glad you came. It was great. And it was just so wonderful to help other couples to connect to each other locally, to be able to have that in person support. And yeah, it was really great.
I love, yeah, I wish I could have been there because I have heard such good feedback. And I think that that's something I want to lean into right now. When we go on a retreat, whether it's ourselves or with our spouse, sometimes we have kind of an intention behind that retreat and, what we're hoping for. And I know when I go on a retreat, typically whatever my desire was and more, right, is met, and
Hmm.
the Lord was just giving so much. And so what were some of the couples saying about the retreat, Cassie? What was some of their feedback? What was helpful to them, or what really touched them?
A lot of the feedback that we got was comments just like, I am not alone. That was a big one. I'm not alone. I'm loved by God. God has a plan and a purpose for our marriage. Um, that there are gifts to be had in this season, even though there's a lot of struggles. And they were just really glad that they felt seen by the church. They felt supported. Some of them said for the first time. And, that some of the burden was lifted. And that I just love hearing that a little bit of their burden was lifted and that their marriages were blessed. And just that they were able to take a step back from kind of like all the busyness, the actions, the problem solving, to just kind of reconnect spiritually and emotionally with themselves and with their spouses, and just like get a little bit more perspective.
Wow, that's really beautiful. One of the first times I went on a retreat, it was, gosh, it must have been in high school, I think. Um, but the priest who is kind of the chaplain of the retreat talked about the word retreat and what it meant in military terms, and how um, I think I think he said they no longer call it retreat, but like a strategic. Um, I don't remember quite what the word is, but essentially that, like, what a retreat is really like it's part of this overall plan. It's part of the strategy for success, that you take a step back. You get a better perspective, a fuller perspective, this wider perspective of what's happening, so that you can go forward again, that you can move forward and stronger and more confident with more knowledge. And I think it's just really beautiful, right, to be able to do that with your spouse, as couples, to come together and um, kind of take this strategic retreat, right? Like to go back and then say, yeah, how can we go forward with more confidence and more connection and
Mhm.
prayer and kind of a foundation. So that was really beautiful. And also, I think, like you said, the Office of Natural Family Planning inviting us, that's something all of our listeners could do, right? To go back to their pastor or diocesan staff if this is something that you think you could benefit from or your parish could benefit from, and say, hey, I know of a ministry who comes and puts this on
Mhm.
and can be a support, right? Because we we all have our gifts, and it can be a lot for diocesan or parish staff to sort of recreate the wheel, like to do all,
Mhm.
support everyone, and so to invite us in to yeah, be that support. And so you can certainly send this podcast their way. But right, if those who are listening, maybe there isn't a near opportunity for a retreat at their diocese or with Springs in the Desert specifically, um, I think I'd like to talk about how we could make a retreat in our own homes, right? That if we need that, and that's what we think, we just need to take a pause, um, we can do that ourselves. And I think the first step of that is an environment, right? And so maybe even with the environment at the retreat you were just at, Cassie, and taking some of that wisdom and bringing it into our homes, what are some ways that we can kind of prepare our homes or an environment to help us retreat and take a step back?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is just trying to remove too many distractions that remind us of all of the to dos on our calendar. So, just having a space that's open with fewer distractions, maybe putting something beautiful there. There were some flowers there, candles, something that can just sort of engage your senses and help you to feel more centered. Um, Maybe if you have like a little balcony on your apartment, or you have a little deck or something, or just a little corner of your house that you can have as your little personal retreat, where this is where we're going, this is the scene that we're setting, to know that all of our energy and our thoughts are focused here in this moment. I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, those give me great ideas. A couple other things that I was thinking about retreats that I have gone on that I really like is typically they have really well stocked snacks and water
Hmm.
available. And so just I think, yeah, to, like you said, get rid of just distractions, maybe letting people know in your life that you're going to be on retreat for the weekend, and finding a way to either shut your phone off or put it on silent or do not disturb. And then just, yeah, like you said, these beautiful images and candles, and just have a well stocked fridge and your favorite
Hmm.
drinks, and so that you can just be really nourished. And I think even if you like, if you have a TV nearby, maybe finding a way to unplug that, or just getting rid of those distractions so that you can just really enter into the silence that God is speaking into all the time. um,
Hmm.
my next thought is, if we are doing it alone, right? Like that might be really helpful, but we could invite our spouse into that too. And I think to make a retreat together, I'm curious what that might look like with our spouse, to invite them into that prayer. And do you have any ideas of how to like set aside a weekend for your spouse to do this?
Hmm. Yeah, I think maybe having them involved in the planning of it a little bit. It doesn't have to be super planned, but you might have different prayer styles or different things that you want to both incorporate. So maybe one really likes the rosary, another one likes journal time, so you can incorporate both of those things. Um, and having time to I think having times to do things like separately and together can be really helpful. So, I know with some retreats I've been on, there's some like reflection questions where you reflect yourself, you maybe write about it, and then you come together and dialogue about it. And I found that that's really helpful, to have both of those things. I think one thing you could try doing too is like you could even like go through our podcast and see what do you think are a couple that could really be good to get you guys talking and connecting about topics that are important to you, or else other I don't know. I don't know if we have any of our past retreats available online. Do you know, Jillian?
Yeah, we they're sort of available. They
Hmm.
exist, and so if that's something that listeners are really looking for, you can just certainly send us an email, and we can help you find one that might be most fitting and get you access to that. But I think the podcast is a really great idea. The blog too. I
Hmm.
think that you could sort of set a schedule. Kind of create
Hmm.
your own schedule, like breakfast, a lot of time to sleep, but
Hmm.
breakfast, and maybe starting with morning prayer, or maybe you have mass locally that you could go to, and then coming back, and maybe it is listening to a podcast and taking some time to reflect on that and journal, or maybe talking to your spouse about that topic, and then maybe there's a blog you could read together, or separately. And I love that, because there's so many, God is going to speak into whatever it is that we're hoping to hear about, and in different ways, and he's going to surprise us. But yeah, there's certainly there's also content on our YouTube as well,
Hmm.
that are good videos about saints. There's a lot of great content that we have, that you can sort of create your own retreat at home. um,
Hmm.
and I love that you said taking some time together and separately, right? Because God, right, we have a personal relationship with Him individually, and then we come together as a couple. Um, and I think to incorporate too, like I said, because it's getting a little bit nicer out, maybe getting outside, using your
Hmm.
your, your body. And I like your idea about a balcony. Just sometimes I find in order to reset, even just momentarily, I just need to step outside and feel the sun, on my
Hmm.
skin. But, going for a walk, and maybe praying a rosary on a walk, or listening to a podcast, on a walk. I think that's beautiful. And there's so many really great, devotions. You could kind of pick a theme, or
Hmm.
you could pray about that. Like, okay, Lord, what topic do you want to talk about? And
Yeah.
and then say, okay, and then you could search our blog and podcast, for that word or that theme, and see what we have available. But like you said, if there's any way that we can help and find, help with topics or navigating that, we would love to do that. Um, and again, just to put another encouragement, that if this is something, you and maybe your circle of friends or your parish, you think we could really benefit from, we would love to come and put a retreat on for you, and you would meet lovely people like Cassie and Ian and Ann, who we want to walk with you wherever you are. And retreats, I think, are just a really beautiful time. I'm curious, in our settings, what do you think is one of the most like powerful parts of the retreat that was in person, Cassie? What do you think was and I'm sure, everyone had different things that they loved, but what do you think, if you're making a retreat at home or you're going to a retreat in person, what's one thing that you would maybe encourage people to make sure is part of a retreat?
Well, the feedback that we got was definitely people really appreciated the small group breakout sessions where they were
Mm.
able to share what was on their heart with another person who could kind of at least get it to a certain extent, that they had some shared experiences or something that they could connect to that helped them to feel less alone and to feel heard and to feel understood. And we keep getting more feedback that they would like more of that. So, unfortunately, on a 1 day retreat, it's hard for there to be as much of that as we would like. So, we are hoping to have some more 2 day retreats. They all said, I think pretty much all of them checked the box that said, would you like for there to be an overnight retreat or 2 or 3 days or whatever? And everybody's like, yes, we would.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think if you're making this at home, one thing is, if you're able to bring your spouse into different parts of that. Maybe you're not both able to do it all weekend, but to kind of put some space in to reflect on what the Lord is telling you with your spouse could kind of take the place of that small group. Or maybe maybe you could get together with a group of friends, who are in a similar season, and um, just propose this idea about a retreat. And maybe you could find a place. Sometimes locally, we have a couple of retreat centers that you can just stay at and reserve rooms and kind of make a personal retreat. Or you could do it, in your own homes and come together for supper, or, find some time, for small group, or just come over and sit in your backyard and just reflect, maybe say some prayers together, or the rosary, to create that small group time. But I think that's so true, because I think sometimes when I am praying about something maybe I'm discouraged about, that is frustrating, I can't always tell if it's the Lord's voice, my own voice, or the enemy's voice speaking to me about something. And so I think that that's a really great suggestion, Cassie, to have small group time, or at least this kind of reflection time to talk it
Mm-hmm.
out with someone, so that if it is lies that we're leaning into or believing, that someone can say, let's talk about the truth. Let's talk about what God is wanting to say to you, because sometimes it can be hard to decipher that, in our own prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and
yeah,
if
that is
anybody
so
in our in the private Facebook group wants to kind of connect and talk with each other, what if you had like
yes,
the same weekend that you did it and you just had a time where you chatted with each other?
yes. That's such a great yes. That is, I have friends, our team is all over the country, and to be able to connect over FaceTime or a Zoom, or, even a phone call, I think that is brilliant. Thank God for, technology to be able to offer so many different ways to connect with one another. That's a great,
Yeah.
great idea. Well, listeners, if you are in a season where you need to retreat, we're here for you. If that's at your diocese or in your home, we'd love if you'd reach out. And we'd like to support you in that and help you come up with a good plan about how to do that. Or reach out to your friends, and you could create, a little retreat at home. Um, Thank you so much, Cassie, for joining me for this episode, and for leading
Jillian,
the recent retreat. And we'll see you all on the podcast next time.